Chapter 8, page 33. Okonkwo did not taste any food for 2 days after the death of Ikamafuna. He drank palm wine from morning till night, and his eyes were red and fierce, like the eyes of a rat when it was caught by the tail and dashed against the floor. He called his son Niobe to sit with him, but the boy was afraid of him and slipped out as soon as he saw Okonkwo dozing. Okonkwo did not sleep at night. He tried not to think about Ikamafuna, but the more he tried, the more he thought about him. Now and then a cold shiver spread down through his body. On the third day he asked his second wife, Ekwefi, to roast plantains for him. She prepared them the way he liked, with slices of oil bean and fish. "You have not eaten for 2 days," said his daughter Zinma when she brought the food, "so you must finish this." She sat down. Okonkwo ate the food absent-mindedly. She should have been a boy, he thought, and he passed her a piece of fish. "Go and bring me some cold water," he said. Azima soon returned with a bowl of cool water from the earthen pot in her mother's hut. Okonkwo took the bowl from her and gulped the water. He ate a few more pieces of plantain and pushed the dish aside. Azima went back to her mother's hut. She should have been a boy, Okonkwo said to himself again. His mind went back to Ikamafuna, and he shivered. If only he could find some work to do, he could forget. But it was the season of rest. "When did you become a shivering old woman?" Okonkwo asked himself. "You, who are known in all the 9 villages for your courage in war. How can a man who has killed 5 men in battle fall to pieces because he added a boy to their number?" He sprang to his feet and went to visit his friend Obierika. And Obierika was sitting outside making thatches from leaves of the raffia palm. He led the way into his hut. "I was coming over to see you as soon as I finished this thatch," he said. "Is it well?" Okonkwo asked. "Yes," replied Obierika. "My daughter's suitor is coming today, and I hope we will settle the matter of the bride price. I want you to be there." Just then Obierika's son, Maduka, came into the hut and greeted Okonkwo. "Come and shake hands with me," Okonkwo said to the lad. "Your wrestling the other day gave me much happiness." And the boy smiled, shook hands with Okonkwo, and went into the compound. "He will do great things," Okonkwo said. "If I had a son like him, I should be happy. I am worried about Niobe. A bowl of yams could throw him in a wrestling match. His 2 younger brothers are more promising. I can tell you, Obierika, that my children do not resemble me. If Azima had been a boy, I would have been happier. She has the right spirit." "You worry yourself for nothing," said Obierika. "The children are still very young." "At Niobe's age, I was already fending for myself. No, my friend, he is not too young. I have done my best to make Niobe grow into a man, but there's too much of his mother in him." Too much of his grandfather, Obierika thought, but he did not say it. The same thought also came to Okonkwo's mind. But whenever the thought of his father's failure troubled him, he expelled it by thinking about his own success. And so he did now. His mind went to his latest show of manliness. "I cannot understand why you refused to come with us to kill that boy," he said to Obierika. "Because I did not want to," Obierika said sharply. "You sound as if you questioned the authority and the decision of the oracle, who said he should die." "I do not. Why should I? But the oracle did not ask me to carry out his decision." "But someone had to do it. If we were all afraid of blood, it would not be done." "You know very well, Okonkwo, that I am not afraid of blood, and if anyone tells you that I am, he is telling a lie. And let me tell you one thing, my friend. If I were you, I would have stayed home. What you have done will not please the earth. It is the kind of action for which the goddess wipes out whole families. "The earth cannot punish me for obeying her messenger," Okonkwo said. "That is true," Obierika agreed. "But if the oracle said that my son should be killed, I will neither dispute it nor be the one to do it. They would have gone on arguing had Ofueru not come in just then. It was clear he had important news. And finally he said, "The things that happen these days are strange." "What has happened?" asked Okonkwo. "Do you know Agbuefi Ndulo?" Ofueru asked. "He died this morning." "Oh, that is not strange. He was the oldest man in Aire," said Obierica. "You are right," Ofueru agreed. "But you should ask why the drum has not told of his death." "Why?" asked Obierica and Okonkwo together. "That is the strange part. You know his first wife? When he died this morning, one of his younger wives went to Ozuema's hut and told her. She rose from her mat, took her stick, and walked to his hut. She knelt on her knees and called her husband 3 times. Then she went back to her hut, and when the youngest wife went to call her to be present at the washing of the body, she was dead." "That is strange indeed," said Okonkwo. "They will put off Noduele's funeral until his wife has been buried. That is why the drum has not been beaten." "It always said that Noduolo and Wazamina had one mind," Obierica said. "I remember when I was a young boy, there was a song about them. He could not do anything without telling her." "I did not know that," said Okonkwo. "I thought he was a strong man in his youth." "He was indeed," said Ofueru. Okonkwo shook his head doubtfully. "He led Umuofia to war in those days," said Obierica. Page 37. Okonkwo was beginning to feel like his old self again. All he needed was something to occupy his mind. If he had killed Ikamafuna during the planting season, it would not have been so bad. But now, talking was the next best thing to do. Soon after Ofueru left, Okonkwo took up his goatskin bag to go. "I must go home to tap my palm trees for the afternoon," he said. "It will not be very long now before my in-laws come," said Obierica. "I shall return very soon," said Okonkwo, looking at the position of the sun. Page 37. There were 7 men in Obierica's hut when Okonkwo returned. The suitor was a young man of about 25, and with him were his father and his uncle. On Obierica's side were his 2 elder brothers and Maduka, his 16-year-old son. "Ask Okweke's mother to send us some kola nuts," said Obierica to his son. Maduka vanished into the compound like lightning. The conversation at once centered on him, and everybody agreed he was sharp as a razor. "I sometimes think he is too sharp," said Obierica somewhat indulgently. "He hardly ever walks. He is always in a hurry." "You were much like that yourself," said his oldest brother. And as he was speaking, the boy returned, followed by Okweke, his half-sister, carrying a wooden dish with 3 kola nuts and alligator pepper. She gave the dish and then shook hands, very shyly, with her suitor and his relatives. She was about 16 and ready for marriage. Her suitor and his relatives surveyed her with expert eyes. She wore a coiffure done up with a crest in the middle of her head. Camwood was rubbed lightly into her skin. She wore a black necklace that hung down in 3 coils, and on her arms were red and yellow bangles. The men had already begun to drink the palm wine that Okweke's suitor had brought, and as the men drank, they finally talked about everything except why they had gathered. Finally, the suitor's father cleared his voice and announced the purpose of their visit. Obierica presented him a small bundle of short broomsticks. Ukegbu counted them. "They are 30?" he asked. Obierica nodded in agreement. "We are at last getting somewhere," Ukegbu said, and then turning to his brother and his son, he said, "Let us go out and whisper together." They left, and when they returned, Ukegbu handed the bundle of sticks back. Now there were only 15. Obierica passed them to his eldest brother Machi, who counted them and said, "We had not thought to go below 30, but marriage should be a play and not a fight, so we are falling down again." He added 10 sticks to the 15 and gave the bundle to Okwegbu. In this way, Okwegi's bride price was settled at 25 bags of cowries. It was dusk when the two parties came to this agreement. Go and tell Okwegu's mother that we have finished, Obierika said to his son Maduka. Almost immediately, the women came in with a big bowl of fufu. Obierika's second wife followed with a bottle of pot wine, a pot of soup, and Maduka brought in a pot of palm wine. As the men ate and drank, they talked about the customs of their neighbors. It was only this morning, said Obierika, that Okwanko and I were talking about Abame and Aninta, where titled men climb trees and pound fufu for their wives. All their customs are upside down. They do not decide bride prices as we do with sticks. They haggle and bargain as if they are buying a goat or a cow in the market. That is very bad, so Obierika's eldest brother. But what is good in one place is bad in another place. In Umunsu, they do not bargain at all, even with broomsticks. The suitor just goes on bringing bags of cowries until his in-laws tell him to stop. It is a bad custom because it always leads to a quarrel. The world is large, said Okwanko. I have even heard that in some tribes a man's children belong to his wife and her family. It is like the story of white men who, they say, are white like this piece of chalk, said Obierika. He held up a piece of chalk, which every man kept in his hut, and with which the guests drew lines on the floor before they ate kola nuts. Have you ever seen them? Asked Machi. Have you? Asked Obierika. One of them passes here frequently, said Machi. His name is Amadi. And those who knew Amadi laughed. He was a leper, and the polite name for leprosy was with the white skin. Make sure you answer all questions for Chapter 8.